Good morning, good morning. Do. Good morning. Hope you're all well. Trying a few new things out again today. Keep trying. While it's new, while it's fresh, while there's still. Try these new things. Why not? That's what I say. I'm trying to get myself. I've finally got my new screen working. My other screen working, which is great. So I should be able. There we are. Haha. Without having to check my phone all the time. Yes, I'm live now. I can see myself. Oh, hopefully comments will come up on there because I don't want to have an echo. Oh, I suppose I could turn those down, can't I? Let's try that. Turn. Right, can I hear myself? No, I can't. Excellent. This is working well. See the comments, do everything else. Streaming. Excellent. Excellent. I'm all excited now. This is going well. Right. How are you? How's your week been? I am interested. I'd like to know. Tell me all about your week. What you've been doing. How it's been going. I'm going to try and format these into certain sessions. So I've got a plan. I'm going to do a bit of a general chit chat to start with. So, you know, if you don't want to sit and listen to me for an hour, you don't have to. You can join later. You can just skip through all of this and everything. I've got some plans to do some stuff. I'm going to carry on doing them. Like I say, because I like them, and I'm still going to be raising money for Mind, which is great. Thank you so for donations last week. I didn't see those until later, but that was really generous. Thank you. Like I said last week, it was my I finished working at the youth service that I've been working at for 5 years, and I don't know. I'm still processing it. I feel like I'm on holiday a little bit at the moment. I don't really feel like I've left fully. What am I doing? I'm doing 3. So have I finished? I must have finished that other one then, because these are fresh. So yeah, I've finished now. It feels like I'm a bit on holiday. It feels a bit weird. But it's been a really refreshing week, actually. It's been really good. I haven't had, it's been the last week of the school holiday, so trying to do a few things with the kids, getting those ready, getting that all done and dusted. And things, last minute school stuff like shoes for smallest one who's had a shoot up. So there's all those sort of things. I coloured my hair because it was getting a bit dull, and I don't like dull hair. Dull hair is boring. Yeah, it was getting a bit dull, so I thought I'd brighten it up a bit, and it's gone really, really blue, which is great. I've got a new dye. It's one of those that you mix, so I think it's probably a professional dye, so I had to be careful with it. I tried to do it properly, and then I ended up with a bit that I've missed at the back, so I've got to redo it. But hey ho, well, I've just got to do the back, so I'm going to just like put a little bit on the back there and get that sorted. But this week it's been a nice week, even with the rain. We have had rain this week, haven't we? Pretty sure we have. Anyway, what I'm planning to do is do 3 different sections, so like 20 minutes each, maybe. I'm planning. The first 20 minutes will just be me rambling and just doing my shizzle, checking in with everybody, seeing how everybody is, and stuff like that. The second 20 minutes, the second 20 minutes will be, there was 3. It was literally in my head a minute ago. This is so frustrating. I hate it when this happens to me. And unfortunately, it happens all too often. So, yeah, we're going to be doing 3. I've got the CBT workshop thing. And there was something else I was going to do. I can't remember. Gosh. Yeah, talk about different styles of mental health. So do a little bit of education for us all, really, so that we can figure out how to support each other as much as anything, so we can understand a bit more, because some mental health issues, they're not understood fully. So I'm going to be doing something like that, a bit of education maybe, and see how it goes, just to see if it helps, see if it works. But that's what I thought we could do. We could do a bit of just general chitter chat to start with, see how everybody's going, fill you in on my week, let you know what's going on here. I'm hoping it helps, because now I'm worrying that, this is the overthinking side of things, isn't it? Now I'm worrying that if I'm having a good week, it might make you feel bad about your week. But I don't want to do that. That's not the issue. I do overthink things so much, and it has been good. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to do some storytelling. I was going to do a bit of storytelling, a bit of education and storytelling and stuff like that. So telling you a bit more about my history, a bit more in depth and stuff like that. I think my brain has just suddenly, why is it I was really hyped and upbeat, and now I've come on live, I feel a bit I don't know. Is it because I've taken my glasses off? Because I can't see the screen properly with my glasses on, because they're varifocals. I've got to that age now where I need varifocals, and so I can't see mid distance. So I've got a separate pair of glasses for the screen. But when I get engrossed in things and stuff like that, and then I've got to suddenly rush off and pick up my son or whatever, I forget to switch them out. So it can be a bit. So I've just started taking my glasses off and things. But I always used to be really self-conscious about my eye bags. I don't know why. I just really used to feel a bit subconscious about my eye bags and things. So it's just trying to get over that as much as anything, because I am what I am. I could change what I could change if I want to. Like my hair colour, I want to change my hair colour, I could change that. Can't really do much about my eye bags, apart from spend loads of money on plastic surgery or stuff that may or may not work. Drink a bit of water. So I'm drinking more water, and that is helping actually. It's making me feel better. It's helping to hydrate my skin. It's just very simple. Just drink more water. It's amazing what that does for you. Such a simple thing, and we don't do it. So I carry around, oh, it isn't here. I've got two water bottles. I've got this one that lives in the office, so that I've always got water. And then I've got a smaller one that I carry around with me when I go around and about and everything. And I try and drink either one of those big ones a day or two of the smaller ones, because it does help. It gives you a bit more energy, keeps me more awake, and things like that. But my mental health at the moment is doing really well. It feels better this week than it has for ages. For ages and ages and ages. I'm out of sign, out of what's it then? So I think I've made the right decision. I've done the right thing. So this is the thing with changes, isn't it? Sometimes you've got to make those changes for the best. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I've got my own business, but I'm not making money from that yet. But I'm lucky enough that I've got a casual role that I can do to bring in a little bit of money. So I'm not really worrying about that at the moment. So that's not a big issue. It's not really been something that I've worried about overly much anyway, unless I'm really, really in debt. I have been really, really in debt in the past. When I was first really ill with the anxiety and the depression, to be honest, I was with a partner at the time. We're going into story time a bit early. I was with my ex-partner at the time, and we'd finally moved into our own home, and because we'd lived with a friend for a little bit, and then they'd sold their house, so we'd moved. Well, he'd lived with a friend. We weren't living together, but he'd been living with a friend. While the house was being sold, to keep them company, and so we spent a lot of time together in that house, and we were getting on really, really well. There was a lot of we were really into each other and stuff like that. We really we were really having a great time. Then the house was sold, so he had to move back to his parents' house, and things sort of changed a bit. Then we sort of he started to spend more time on his computer. There was less connection between us for some reason. There was less I'm quite tactile. I'm very, very tactile. I like to hug, I like to touch, I like to feel that I feel like I like to feel that I'm loved. I might know that I'm loved or know that I'm appreciated, but that doesn't always help for me. I think that's one of the problems I had when I was growing up. I like to have that tactility. I like that demonstration. Like my husband always gives me a kiss goodbye and things like that. So there's there's all of those things that I need to keep myself happy, and there was a lot less of that happening, and I thought that maybe if we got our own home, things would improve. It would go back to how it was, because that was great. So we got and we were both working. We were both working full time. We both, really, we were comfortable. We didn't have any real problems. So we got our own house together, and that's when all the problems really started. It was fine to start with, and then he got I suppose he was duped by somebody really in the end, but he was offered this proposition, because he'd always says he was going to be a millionaire and he was going to do all this, and he had big ambitions and stuff, and he was a really clever bloke. He was really clever, and he was a lovely bloke, and we're still friends and all that. We left on good terms, and we just sort of like drifted apart in the end. But anyway, getting ahead of myself. He was offered this opportunity to work for this bloke who was starting up a business, selling. He was buying up land, getting the planning permission, and then selling them off again, which sounded all right. It sounded understandable. And he'd made a lot of money on that in the past, and wanted my ex to get involved with the new thing. And he was saying that, we'll do this and that and the other, and he was really good with he had the gift of the gab, as you always used to say when I was a kid. And so my partner at the time gave up his job to focus on that, and and that was all fine. It was good because I was still working and we could still manage, and he had a bit of money coming in. But then the money from that stopped, and we were on there was a lot going on, and then I became ill with my anxiety because somebody from it was weird. I'd been, I think it was a combination of things that really triggered it, because I'd been ill from the turn of, well, from before. This was 2000, like 99, 2000, and I'd been ill pretty much for months. I wasn't feeling very well. I kept just constantly getting coughs and colds and stuff like that, and I was ill for the New Year celebrations and all of that. So I remember it was around then, and I was on antibiotics, and I was in the queue for some milk in our local corner shop, and I remember I was stood there. There was 2 people ahead of me, and I was just minding my own business, completely fine, apart from like feeling a bit grotty, as you do sometimes when you're getting over something. And I was on antibiotics, and somebody walked in through the door. You know, as the door dings, you look over and you think, you automatically look to see who's coming in. And it was somebody who I thought had moved away from Birmingham, and she walked in. A bit of backstory for this: she actually had a child with my partner at the time. It was when I was very young, before I was 20, in my early 20s, 16 to 21, and it was all very complicated, and we'll go into that one another time because it's really complicated. Anyway, she walks in with this big smile on her face, and a little condescending she's got one of these really condescending ways of looking at you. You know, she's sort of like almost like a sneer on her face, and she sneered her way up to me, and it was just the shock of her being there. It was just like completely threw me off, and at that point it was sort of like everything went into slow motion almost, and it was like all of a sudden I was in a bubble, and I was just surrounded by this bubble, and everything went muffly and a bit funny, and I felt like I couldn't breathe, and it was just like really hazy. Everything was muffled. It was like I was underwater and I couldn't breathe, and everything was a bit blurry and a bit slow motiony, and it was really hard to sort of move forward and do anything. I don't really remember getting through it. I think it was really muffly while I was she went off to do a bit of shopping. I think I paid for the milk, and I was just sort of stood there. I was forming words was really hard. I had to really, really concentrate on being normal, because all I wanted to do was just drop the milk on the floor and run. I didn't want to stay in that vicinity at all, because it sideswiped me completely. I had no idea she was back in Birmingham, no idea she lived anywhere near me, let alone, expected to ever see her again, and it was just like I'd been slapped in the face. And I stood there and I managed to get that done, and then she caught me on my way out and had a conversation about things and tried to make me feel really bad, which she managed to do because she always could, about her daughter and everything like that. And because I loved her daughter, it was just she was a baby, you know, and I tried to, I would have stayed in touch, but they just vanished. They didn't contact me or anything. They just went. For the daughter's sake, because it wasn't her fault. She was a baby, you know, and she had horrible parents, and I wanted to be there. But apparently, then it all turned into my fault, that I hadn't stayed in touch and that I didn't. So, according to that woman from my past, because the daughter, she was about how old would she have been? About 6, 7. I can't remember. Can't work that out. Maths out at the moment. She asked who I was. Who's this, mummy? And she tried to make me feel bad about not, you know, that I was supposed to have been like godmother to her. I should have been like in her life and stuff like that, like somebody else. But the thing is, I didn't have any contact details. They just disappeared. But so she tried to make me feel really bad about that and stuff, and it was just really, she had that sneery face. She's always had a sneery face, and yeah, she just made me feel so belittled and everything, and so awful and so bad and so guilty and stuff like that. And then I just felt awful. Everything was still in a bubble. I couldn't think straight. I was just like, my heart was right up here in my chest. I felt like I was going to pass out. I couldn't breathe, and I was just desperately trying to hold it all together. And anyway, I got home and I thought that was just so weird. That was just the weirdest experience I've ever had. It took me a while to get over it. So I went to see the doctor about it because I thought it was a reaction to the antibiotics. I thought it was something to do with the antibiotics I was on because they were fairly fresh. And it was then that the doctor said that I'd had a panic attack. And it was really, really horrible. It was just it's so hard to explain how it actually made me feel. But it just felt like I was in a bubble. Everything else, I was like I was underwater. Everything was slow. I couldn't think. I couldn't speak. I had to really concentrate on everything. I just wanted to get out of there. But I didn't want to make a fool of myself. I didn't want to just run, because that's not what we do, is it? You're in the middle of a queue. You don't just drop the milk and bolt it out the shop. So I had to hold it together, and I think that's what it was, why it got so bad. And then I'd spot her on my way out, and I found out that I used to live right next to the train station that I used to get into work, and it was great. So I just dropped down the road, pop on the train station, head into Birmingham into the city centre for work. And she lived opposite the entrance to the train station, and that just did it for me. And there was issues going on at work. There was issues at work. It's a story of my life almost. Promotions. They were giving out promotions, but then, and people thought I was a lead, that I was, because I knew my stuff, and I worked in a call centre for bank accounts at the time. So people would phone in for things like mortgages, like a little bit of mortgage advice, bank account, overdrafts, that sort of stuff. It was just like a phone in, and I'd I knew my stuff. I'd been there for a few years. People thought I was like a supervisor at the time, and then they were doing supervision. They were promoting people to be supervisors in the different groups. They had a bit of a change around, and people thought I already was one. But then they went and promoted other people just because they'd been there longer. People that didn't even really want it because they'd been there longer. So I was feeling a bit put out about that and a bit upset about that. And plus with her being right by the train station, I remember the one time I'd got partly to work. My anxiety was so bad. I was so het up about everything, so anxious about everything, because I felt anxious going into work because of how things had worked out. I was anxious about going anywhere around by where I lived in case I bumped into her. And my anxiety was just piling up on itself. And there was other things as well. There was, money was starting to get a little bit tight. I was doing everything. I was earning the money. I was doing the house, and my partner was just pulling away. I suppose I was pulling away as well at the time because I was just so internally. It could have been me that was pulling away, and I just perceived him to be pulling away, But I was so internally tumultuous within me that I remember actually getting off the train, starting to walk up towards work, and literally throwing up. I was so het up about everything. I actually threw up on the way to work. And then it was shortly after that, it just got worse. I bumped into her again and again, and it was just, I got to the point where I couldn't leave the house for fear of repercussions and just fear of everything, my anxiety. I couldn't even go into my own back garden. At one point I couldn't even go into my own back garden because I was terrified. I was terrified that my neighbours, or that you had spies out reporting my every move. And the thing is, when you get this bad, logic doesn't come into it. Logic doesn't really settle. Because if I look back at it now, I can think of, a lot of logical things and a lot of other things, but I still feel, I'm not emotional about it anymore, but I can still feel the emotion, if you know what I mean. And I could still feel it. I could still remember it. It's still there, but I don't get emotional about it anymore. It doesn't affect me in the same way. God knows how I'd feel if I actually did see her, though. I don't know. But yeah, it got to the point where I could not leave the house. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go into my own back garden for fear of people reporting back to her. I thought she had spies everywhere. My anxiety and depression got so bad that it trapped me. It was life changing. It was life altering, and I can't even remember how I managed to get the doctor. I think my partner took me to the doctors, or my friend took me, and I was really lucky because I had some friends who were not going to leave me in that predicament. They weren't going to leave me just rotting at home or anything. But I couldn't go to work. I ended up having 6 months off work because I just couldn't go in. They were really good. They were really good about it. But that my hormones, my emotions, everything were just completely out of whack. And that's when that was when my mental health hit rock bottom, really. Not completely. I had previous rock bottom moments as well, but that was when I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and I started on medication and stuff like that. But luckily my friends wouldn't leave me in that predicament, and they'd come round and we'd do stuff. And she'd I had this one friend, and I was an ex-smoker. I'd given up to an extent, pretty much. I'd pretty much given up. And the house we were living in was no smoking. It was rented and everything. And she was saying, like, you know, well, you can't. I had my dog at the time, my beautiful, beautiful baby girl, and my cat, and some fish and stuff like that. I had my animals to keep me company. My partner was upstairs on the computer all the time. You know, he only ever came down to eat, so I never really saw him very much. And again, I don't know whether it was me pulling away from him or what, because when you're struggling from mental health issues like that, you do pull away, you do struggle, you do sort of. I felt horrible. I needed that support. I needed that love. I needed that that reassurance that I was still loved, that I was still valid, that I was still a good person. But he wasn't able to provide it for me. And I don't know whether that was me or him. Probably a bit of both. Anyway, because I was off sick for 6 months, and then my friends wouldn't leave me in that position, so she'd bribe me to go out. She started off by bribing me to go out into the back garden with a cigarette, a rollie, and I mean, it's not the best way to overcome things, but it did help. And so if I wanted a ciggy, I had to go out into the garden, and then she sort of bribed me down to the bottom of the garden, and I had my car, but I hadn't really used it much. And then that became my second haven. We'd go sit in the car, and then we'd go out places in the car. So we slowly built it back up, slowly built up my ability to go out. But then I couldn't work full time. I think this is also when my fibromyalgia kicked in, and there was a lot of other things that started to kick in at that time. And I really started to struggle to work. I mean, I was still anxious. I was still really worried about bumping into her and stuff on the way into work and things like that. So it got to the point where I could only work part-time. He still wasn't bringing in any money. We were hemorrhaging money left, right and centre. It got to the point where I had 3 different credit cards, and I was borrowing from one credit card to pay another credit card to pay a bill. So I was juggling money. It was sort of like if I had the electric bill to pay, I'd borrow from one credit card to pay the electric bill, and then borrow from another credit card to pay that one, and then because they all had, so it's literally I was just like playing pass the parcel, and then added stuff because it was just, yeah, we were hemorrhaging money. There was no way because he wasn't earning anything, he wasn't getting anything. But he was convinced this thing was still gonna, you know, he was convinced he was going to be a millionaire, and obviously it didn't work. So I ended up in a lot of debt, buried my head. That was very stressful. The lifesaver was it was getting to the point where I couldn't see a way out. It was just like, it was getting so stressful, I was getting so worried. And a lot of people that struggle with their mental health struggle with finances and stuff like that, because it's just so complicated and so difficult to manage. Anyway, I ended up, my lifesaver, my knights in shining armour, were a debt consolidation company. Gregory Pennington, I think they were called. They were so good. They were amazing. What they did, I would recommend to anyone who's suffering from financial problems, really bad financial problems, debt, stuff like that, because the interest on the debt ends up just building it up even more. It's a trap. It sort of traps you, and you feel overwhelmed, and you can't move on from that, because it's sort of like you've got your debt, and then you've got the interest going on the debt, which makes it so your monthly payment, your minimum monthly payment, is barely covering the interest. You know, it's not even covering the interest, it's covering half of the interest, but all you can afford is your monthly payment. And then so what these the debt recovery people do, the debt what Gregory Pennington, in my case, the debt consolidation companies do, is they take over the debt. And then they arrange with they take over the arrangement of the debt. So they work out what you can afford on a monthly basis from your outgoings and everything like that. And then they will contact the people on your behalf, which is one of the biggest problems that I had, was actually contacting people. I just couldn't. I hate phone calls. I worked in a call centre, but they were phoning me, and it was my job, so that was different. That was a different compartmentalisation. But for me to make a phone call to someone, or to take a phone call, I've got to really be in the right frame of mind and stuff like that. It's why I always end up being really late with my MOT every year, because I can't get the motivation to phone the garage. Anyway, I contacted these people, and then they contacted all the individual creditors. I was the debtor, all the individual creditors, and arranged for the interest to be stopped, so the debt wasn't getting worse. And then they arranged a monthly payment with them. So for some of them, I was just paying £4 a month and stuff like that. Some were 15 quid, some were 20 quid. And so I was paying that, and it was like £100 a month, which was quite considerate, because I was only working part-time. So it was £100 a month I owed these people. I paid these people, and they'd pay it off. I mean, it was going to take me forever to pay it all off. They also managed to arrange to get some of it wiped off, so there wasn't as much debt to pay. So they'd managed to wipe. I don't know how they did it. They were lifesavers. So I think I went from like £20,000-30,000 in debt through different credit cards, because I'd take out a new credit card I thought I was being clever, and I'd take out another credit card to go on to interest-free payments, but then I wouldn't cancel the old credit cards. So then I'd start using the old credit card again, and I'd max out the new one, and then start using the. I was just really bad. I think it's because I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no to my partner. I couldn't say no to people, which it all goes back over the years. And apparently people with ADHD are people pleasers anyway, so they find it hard to say no generally. But yeah, I couldn't say no. So if he wanted something, he'd get it, sort of thing. And so in the end, we couldn't afford to live in the house we were in. Well, actually, no, the landlord was kicking us out because he wanted to sell the property. And I don't know whether we didn't receive the initial letters, the initial or whether my brain just didn't comprehend what was going on with them, or what had happened. But it got really, they said, like, they gave us apparently we'd been given a certain amount of notice, but the notice that we'd been given we didn't know about. I didn't know about it at the time. So whether I didn't receive the letters or anything, I don't know. But it all became very quick and very sudden because he wanted to sell it. And we had to sort something out. Now, the person that my partner at the time was working for, actually sort of bought a house for us. So I was thinking, oh well, you know, it's still going to work out. So he bought a house, and he said, I'll cover the mortgage. He said he'll cover the mortgage as part of a payment towards, like, as a wage sort of thing, so that we didn't actually have to pay rent or anything like that. So I was still working part-time. I think with the stress of everything as well, because this is the time that I really remember the fibro kicking in, because I remember getting the bus to work. Oh no, I think I was working full-time back then. It was only after we moved to this new house that I started working part-time, because I remember it being the buses that were just getting too much. Oh, it all starts to blur a little bit, doesn't it, when you get a bit older and it gets in the past and you're not thinking about it all the time. And anyway, we moved into this new house, and it was great. They were paying the mortgage and stuff like that, and I was getting over the debt. So I'm going to leave that part of the story there, because we'll move into things. But yeah, that really helped. So anybody, because debt can be a really big cause of issues. I've gone over my time, but I'll finish this. Debt can be a really big cause of massive problems and issues and things like that. So there's always a way out, guys. There is always a way out. No matter how bad you feel, there is always a way out. So I would recommend contacting a debt consolidation company, because they saved my life. They sorted it all out for me, reduced the debt to massively, and yeah, I ended up being debt free 2008. So that's not too bad. That wasn't too bad. So I was pleased with that. So anybody who's got debt problems or money problems, please do reach out. It's nothing to be ashamed about, nothing to be worried about, nothing to be, you know, everybody has these things happen. It's very difficult in this day and age to not have debt of some kind, or, you know, be struggling with money. And money is such a, there we go. Woo, it's all done. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I like that. So like I say, this is going to be either a gift to somebody who donates the most, or I feel that's a bit bad, because sometimes what people can afford is less. It's more, you know, it's less. So I think what I'll do is I'll raffle it to anybody who donates, and we'll continue doing some more things. So somebody will get something, and I'm going to contact Mind as well to see if I can get some nice goodies from them. But isn't that good? That's so pretty. I like it. So there we go. And if nobody wants it, then I'll auction it off or do something else with it. But I've enjoyed doing that with you guys, so that's nice. So yeah, so let's put that into frame. You don't want to see. There. Does that work? No, there we go. That's it. That'll do. So yeah, always go and seek help. Speak to a friend, or just Google debt support, and there's probably people out there, and just find somebody. Mine was Gregory Pennington. I don't know if they're still around or not, but they were brilliant, and they were really helpful and really understanding, and they didn't make me feel like crap, and they didn't really make me feel belittled or anything, which was really, really good, especially with some of the experiences that I had in one of my jobs, which I'll tell you about another time, because I can't believe it's nearly 11. But I wanted to talk to you about Suicide Prevention Month, because we're heading into September is Suicide Prevention Month, and the 10th of September, which is Tuesday, is World Suicide Prevention Day. Now, I've done a suicide prevention course in the past, and teen mental health first aid training, and I've been there myself. I've wanted to end it all, and not wanted to continue, and I've experienced losing people to suicide. I think the majority of us have probably experienced that loss, and it's something that is always affecting us. You never completely forget, you never completely get over that loss, because there's always that wonder of what could I have done? Maybe if I'd have got there a little bit sooner. All of these little things that go on in your mind. I know I've experienced it. I've experienced the loss by suicide. My brother has. My partner has. A lot of people that I know have experienced that loss. And a lot of the time, it's not always planned. A lot of the time it's a very sudden decision. So there's a lot of the time it's just the mood is the right mood, the situation presents itself, the opportunity presents itself, and people go for it. They're just in such a low place. This is where I was, because I had a plan. I still have that plan in the back of my head whenever it gets really low, but I haven't taken the final steps to work out exactly how I'm going to do it, sort of thing. But this time that I almost did was that it was just very instantaneous. I just had enough. I couldn't do it, and I was going to try and end it all at the time. But then my overthinking brain kicked in, and all sorts. And obviously, I'm still here. But it is World Suicide Day, Prevention Day. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about international suicide, and what I've gone onto the World Suicide Prevention Day website to get this for you. So I'm not making it up. It's actual stuff that is available to anybody. But sometimes it's easier when somebody tells you rather than you've got to go look for it yourself. So every 90 minutes, someone in the UK or Ireland dies by suicide, and 1 in 4 of us has had suicidal thoughts. Let's prevent suicide today, because tomorrow is too late. Suicide Prevention Day, I think that's by the Samaritan, surveyed people who lived experience of suicide, and the majority told them that their suicidal thoughts had been interrupted. 60% said their suicidal thoughts had been interrupted by someone close to them, like a friend or a family member. 14% said their suicidal thoughts had been interrupted by a stranger or someone they didn't know. So just anybody on the street. World Suicidal Prevention Day 2025 campaign was created with people who have lived experience of suicidal thoughts. They're sharing their experiences and insights to help you take action if you suspect someone may be suicidal. They've put together a couple of web pages. How to interpret someone's suicidal thoughts, including real-life examples of how people's suicidal thoughts were interrupted by strangers or someone they knew. Ideas of how to support yourself if you're struggling with suicidal thoughts. And I will put the links to those under this video. If you're worried someone is having suicidal thoughts, it's better to interrupt than not. Right. Small interruptions you make and actions you take could help someone who is suicidal. You don't have to be an expert to save someone's life. In response to their survey, many people have lived experience recalled times when those close to them, such as family members or friends, had interrupted their family thoughts. How to interrupt someone's suicidal thoughts. Here we go, we're going to go onto that web page. Okay. What is an interruption? We spoke to people who have had experience of suicidal thoughts, and they told us that their suicidal thoughts have been interrupted by moments of human connection. An interruption could be a face-to-face conversation, a phone call, text, or any other way of connecting with someone when they're experiencing suicidal thoughts. It is important to remember that anyone can interrupt someone's suicidal thoughts. Tips on how to start communicating. Wish I'd actually thought of this earlier before, because I just suddenly thought about it when I came on. I thought, oh yeah, it's I knew it was Suicide Awareness Month, but I didn't think of doing this with you guys. So ways to start a conversation. But we'll do this every week in September, I think. Maybe that'll be good. I've got a bruise on my arm. Where did that come from? It's really tender. Don't know what I've done. Can you see it? Can't get you into camera now. It was on the camera, I noticed it. It was really tender yesterday. Ways to start a conversation. You don't have to be an expert or know the exact right things to say. Being there and showing that you care can make all the difference. Try to listen with empathy and without judgment to help the person open up about how they're feeling, and don't be afraid to ask someone if they're feeling suicidal. There are many ways to start a conversation. There are many ways to start a conversation that could save a life. From a simple hello to a bit of small talk to asking someone how they're really feeling. The most important thing is that you take action if you think someone might be suicidal. Just a lived experience. They distracted me with complimenting my shoes. Sounds random, but it took me off took me off guard. I almost forgot what I was thinking about. It's just something like that. Suggestions from people with lived experience. Remember to approach someone with kindness and compassion. You can start a conversation with a simple question like, how are you? Are you okay? Would you like a chat? You can comment on something in your shared environment, the weather, something in their shopping basket, anything to open up a conversation. Find something you notice about them to comment on positively. This could lead to a conversation, for example, their shoes or their coat. Give the person something to touch or hold. Show them something that you have with you. This can be a distraction through touch and may help to ground a person. Ask them to pause, ask them to take a breath with you. It could help them get to the next moment. More suggestions from members of their lived experience panel. A simple hello to begin any intervention, then slowly explore and wait for an invite. And explore why the person is feeling or having suicidal thoughts. Asking if they want a drink, like a tea or coffee, offering to sit with them, with or without talking, to show you're there. Be prepared to talk to someone, don't worry about saying the wrong thing. If you're worried someone is having harmful thoughts, it's better to interrupt than not. So yeah. Just smiling at somebody can make all that difference. So don't be afraid if you're walking down the street and you see someone and they're looking distracted, bewildered, whatever. You know, they or you have a funny feeling, you have a gut feeling that something's not quite right, just compliment them on something. Say, oh, I love your shoes. It doesn't hurt. Nothing's going to happen. You know, it's not, they're not going to turn around and smack you or hit you with something for saying, I love your shoes. Nobody's going to be aggressive if you've just turned around and said, I love your shoes. Even if they tell you to fuck off, how is that going to hurt? You know, you never know what somebody else is going through, and if we live in a world where we can be anything, be kind. My kids will just compliment people. Generally, if they see something nice about something, they will compliment them, and that's one of the things I absolutely love about them. But yeah, just interrupt those thoughts if you think they might be harmful thoughts, because you could save a life just by saying hello. Just imagine that. And you'll never know generally, especially if they're a stranger. But supporting a friend, just being there for them, knowing that they are loved, they are appreciated, can be so important. It can be the difference between life and death for some. So I'm going to leave you. It is 10:56. I've waffled on for long enough. I can't believe how quick that's gone. But remember, you are loved, you are valued, and you are important. Okay.